Hello, GED students. It's GED question of the daytime. And one of the kinds of problems that you could see on the no calculator section of the math test are undefined expression problems. There's a couple different types, but we'll look at one of those types today. So let's take a look and read this question. It says, which of the following values would make the expression undefined? Undefined meaning that I can't figure out what it's equal to. It's not going to have a numeric answer. There's no number that it could possibly come to. So when you look at this thing, this is obviously an algebraic expression. It has some x's in it. But what I need you to see is that ugly or not, x's or not, all this is here is a fraction. And the concept of fractions and undefined expressions, or being undefined, hopefully should make sense to you. Because back when we first started learning fractions, or we covered it also when we talked about slope, we talked about what you're not allowed to have in a fraction. There is something that cannot happen. There is a number that cannot appear in a certain place in a fraction. And that is the number 0. The number 0, now it's not like it can't appear anywhere in the problem. The number 0 cannot be the denominator of a fraction. So first I'm going to write this down. The denominator of a fraction. I hope you guys know what this big word denominator means. It's the bottom of the fraction. A reason, the denominator of a fraction tells you how big the pieces are. So you're saying you have pieces of size 0, it doesn't really make sense. Or you break one whole thing into 0 pieces, you can't really do that. Another reason why, hold on, let me finish writing this, can't be 0. Okay, another reason why it can't be 0. Here's probably a better way to think of it. Remember what a fraction bar means. A fraction bar means divide. Well, if I had a fraction like 5 over 0, I'd be saying take 5 and divide by 0. And hopefully we learned way back in 3rd grade that you can't divide by 0. How can you take 5 things and break it into groups of 0? You'd be making groups for the rest of your life, and you'd never ever touch your 5 things. So since we can't divide by 0, the bottom of a fraction can't equal 0. So that's the main thing to know down here. It's that this entire thing cannot equal 0. Okay, now before I start dealing with this, I'm going to write what I just said, the words I just said. This entire thing cannot equal 0. I'm going to write that in a math statement. So this entire thing, the denominator, x minus 3 times x plus 2 can't equal 0. If it equaled 0, then it would make my expression undefined. So basically, everywhere that this thing is equal to 0, my expression will be undefined. So since I'm looking for the places where they're going to be undefined, I'm looking for the places where x is equal to 0. Okay, now, maybe this looks like a more complicated math equation than you know how to solve, but I've got really, really super duper good news for you. I want you to think about what this actually means. This x minus 3 is all in parentheses, meaning that whole big number there is multiplying with this whole big number that's in parentheses, x plus 2. And I gotta tell you guys, I know that algebra makes things a little trickier to see, but if I did this in arithmetic class, you would never have to guess about this. Let me show you what I mean. If I told you like a number times another number equals to 0, I bet you would instantaneously know what number I need to fill in that blank. You tell me 5 times what equals 0. Of course, the only way to multiply to get 0 is 0. Now, it could have been the other way around. It could have been the first number times some other number is equal to 0. But same difference. If I have a number times 7 that equals to 0, the only way I'm going to be able to do that is with a 0. So yeah, this might look simpler than that, but look at what I have. I have one big ugly number times one big ugly number equal to 0. So either it must be true that x minus 3 itself is the 0, Or it must be true that x plus 2 is the 0. One of those two factors has to be equal to 0 in order for them to multiply to 0. And now they're not big, ugly equations anymore. This is two really simple linear equations we know how to solve. We know how to get x alone. I'll do the opposite of subtracting 3. I'll add 3 to both sides. On this side, negative 3 and positive 3 cancel, and I'm left with x. And on the right-hand side is my math to do. 0 plus 3 is 3. So it must be true that x is 3, or let's solve this other equation. So subtract 2 from both sides. On this side, the plus 2 and minus 2 cancel, leaving me with x. And on this side, I get a negative 2. So if 3 got put in this parentheses, 3 minus 3, I'd get a 0. That would be bad. If negative 2 got put in this parentheses, the second set of parentheses, negative 2 plus 2 would turn into 0. That would be bad. Either one of these two answers would give me a denominator of 0, 3 or negative 2. I want you to be really careful, though, because a lot of students get tricked by D. They're like, yeah, but what about the thing up here? What if that turned into 0? Nobody cares. You can have a 0 in the numerator. It's only the denominator, the bottom of my fraction, that cannot equal 0. So don't be the foolish student who gets tricked by anything that gives us a 0 anywhere. We only care about the numbers that would give us a 0 on the bottom of the fraction. So that is the correct answer. If I tried to put 3 in for x, it would make the expression undefined. If I tried to stick a negative 2 in for x in this expression, it would make the expression undefined, because either one of those would turn the denominator into 0. All right, tricky little question, and not something we usually think about. So if you have any questions about this, be sure to drop them in the comments, and I will do my very best to answer them.